up making a video, so hopefully this will all make sense. Um, Back in 1992, I was in surgery and woke up under anesthetic while the doctor was cutting me. After that, I slipped into a coma from kidney failure and spent the next 3.5 years on dialysis. Following that, I received a kidney transplant. At the time, I was living in Salt Lake City, and I was very fortunate to have very good doctors there. Say what you will, but they have the best doctors in Utah. So after I was in the hospital for 2 weeks after my transplant. The normal is a week, but because of the complicated things that happened, I needed to be in the hospital longer. I went home and was really doing well, and then I had a rejection episode, which landed me back in the hospital. They were able to save the kidney, and I went home, and for the next year, I had the best year that I had ever had health-wise. I felt great, had so much energy, and it just felt wonderful to do what I wanted to, and I felt so positive and upbeat because of how good I was feeling. 2 weeks prior to me going into kidney failure, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She had a rare form of breast cancer that does not show up on the mammogram. It's called inflammatory breast cancer. So I helped her for the next 5.5 years, and she helped me. We were doing chemo one day and dialysis the next, or radiation and dialysis. Well, after a while, it finally took her life, and immediately on the heels of that, my niece, who was also my mother's namesake, which was Athena, developed spinal cancer, and I was helping her along with other family members. And then she died suddenly, just prior to the time that she was going to move in with me, like just a few days after the fact. So we got that taken care of, and I had been blessed with the ability to do what I needed to do. Being a caretaker is sometimes more difficult than being the patient. Then the sister that I always had been very close to all of my life, her name was Debbie. She had married my first teenage boyfriend when she was 40. And he ended up with genetic Alzheimer's. His mother died at 37 from it, and his sister at 46. And now here he was in his 50s when he passed away from it. Well, Debbie was a brittle diabetic, and of course, because she was caring for Robert, she wasn't giving herself the best care. And to be honest, she never truly did. She'd always say to me she was the worst person in the world to have diabetes because she hated to eat. So she ended up with having to have a leg amputated. And that was so difficult to watch the pain she went through, even after the leg was gone. And then she kept having blood sugars at 500 and 600, and at least once a month I was having to put her in the hospital. Then she ended up with diabetic dementia. Now, prior to this time, I didn't know you could get dementia from diabetes. Well, I know now. And life became very challenging for her. She could not learn to walk on her prosthesis. And so I couldn't bring her home to live with me because I had a lot of stairs. And she ended up having to go into a care center. And it turns out one of her high school teachers ended up being the physical therapist working with her at the care center. So it was good that there was somebody there that she knew. But still, it's heart-wrenching to put anybody into one of those places. Okay, so now Debbie gets diabetic dementia and passes away. I was living west of Salt Lake City, and after Debbie had died, I started having lung issues. Oh, prior to that, I developed some heart conditions, which does come with kidney problems. First, there was just a murmur, a slight murmur. And then I developed bradycardia in the top of the heart, which is the heart beating too slow. Then I developed tachycardia, the heart beating too fast on the bottom part of the heart, and AFib. I ended up moving to this new town, and it was going very well. I, had what I needed, and it was a comfortable home. Unfortunately, I had a problem with a neighbor that was putting my life in jeopardy with all the major medical conditions I had. So I looked for a year and could not find another home in Utah. So I ended up moving to Idaho, where homes were much cheaper. Now that's a secret out. If you're looking for a cheaper home, come to Idaho. However, once I got here and got established and started seeing new doctors, they advised me all to go back to Utah where I could get better medical care. So I've continued my search to look for a home there. And because I was only 37 when I ended up going on disability, and for those of you who don't know this, when you have end-stage renal disease, you automatically qualify for disability. So I ended up coming to Idaho, and the doctors are still telling me to go back to Utah. Now, the realtors have not been able to find me anything. I have not been able to find anything. So I'm asking if anyone out there knows of any homes between the 150 and 160,000 range, which is pretty hard to find, to pass the information on to me. I have a little bit of equity, which is an advantage I have that most people don't have. But even with that, it's still only in the 160 range. And I want to make this video about another option as well. For those of you who have kidney disease or will face it in the future, are on dialysis, or need a transplant, I am free to chat with. Your doctors will give you wonderful information, and it's all very clinical and things you need to know. But patients who've been through this will give you the practical side and be able to answer your questions in a very realistic way. I can be found on Facebook. But if you have questions about the diet, because the diet for many patients is very confusing because they don't give you a breakdown. They just give you a list of do's and don'ts. And I always felt like more information was needed because when you first go on dialysis, you are very overwhelmed with so much that you have to learn to understand. But you become your own best advocate. So I'm here to listen, to answer questions, but always trust your doctor's advice first. If a patient tells you something that you have doubts about, always check with your doctor. The nephrologists, most of them are very good. For me, I liked one with a little personality. With a surgeon, that's what you're going to get, is you're going to get the educated one. You're more of a body on a table than you are a person. So, find yourself a nephrologist who will take the time to talk to you and take the time to answer your questions. So again, if anyone's aware of anything near an IHC hospital, please contact me. I'll follow up any lead I can come up with. it was kind of fun. The idea came to me today to just do a video, and I thought, well, I've never done a video before, but I thought, well, this is a good chance for me to find out, one, how to increase my knowledge and maybe benefit others as well as myself. Thank you for listening.